Going into this, there are 2 things you need to know about my childhood. The first is that my mother went missing around the time I was 3 years old. The second is, I saw Santa Claus. My mother was a single parent, and I remember her strength was only shadowed by her beauty. In my youth, the kind maternal woman would fill my days with warm mugs of hot chocolates and the bright colours of whimsical days. Sadly, my joyful toddler days came to a halt when my mother went missing around Christmas. I do not know the circumstances of her disappearance, or even when exactly she dissipated from my existence, only that it was around the jolly holiday. I do know that a concerned neighbour had checked up on our apartment when they'd noticed no one had left the small apartment in days. Mrs. Cleary is probably the only reason I survived the ordeal. It had been several days, and I was slowly starving in my would-be tomb. From then on, my Uncle Victor would take me in, and I'd grow up in the soothing countryside, far removed from the traumatic experience that haunted my toddler years. The family would search and search for my mother, who, over the holidays, seemed to disappear. I would be questioned over and over. Who took her? When did she disappear? Of course, I didn't know. It was all a blur. Have you ever tried to remember something in detail from when you were 3? Good luck. The only thing I would tell anyone who'd ask was that Santa had come and given me just what I'd asked for. Now, in my adulthood, I didn't really remember what I'd meant by this. I presumed some kind of trinket had been received Christmas morning, but I couldn't tell you what. And so, the mystery of my missing mother went unsolved. I've even seen her on a few television shows and true crime podcasts. Recently, I took my own child out to meet Santa at the mall. I'd moved back to the bustling city in my later years and started my own family. I took my rosy-cheeked, blonde-haired, rambunctious tot out amongst the falling snow to make a memory that would never leave her. Instead, we unlocked one that had left me long ago. When we were finally up to see Santa, the jolly old geezer, I gave him a huge smile and lifted my little girl onto his lap. "Tell Santa what you'd like for Christmas, darling," I said merrily, reaching for my camera. As I focused on the man and my precious daughter, I truly saw his face for the first time. It felt like I was falling out of existence and into my sordid past. There I was, playing trains under the dining room table Christmas Eve. Mum came over and yelled at me for making a mess earlier that day, and she took away my toy train. I began to cry. I heard a loud bang and looked to the door. A man in a red suit and beard entered our flat and tackled Mum. He took something black out of his pocket and knocked her unconscious with it. He then looked at me, one blue powdery eye and one brown one. The man had a dead eye. A hearty chuckle emitted from his lungs, and the red-faced man came to me. He had confiscated the toy train from my mother's still hands. "I believe this belongs to you," he said, before giving a bellowing laugh. I gulped and took it from him. "Seems like that mean lady doesn't believe in Christmas joy. You do though, right?" he said, putting a vice-like grip on my shoulder. I said nothing. I merely cried, looking to my mother. She was in a puddle of pooling crimson liquid. "Remember, Santa is a secret. Don't ruin it for all the other boys and girls. Tell no one I was here, not even the police. They believe in Santa too. It wouldn't be fair, right?" he said, squeezing his hand harder. When I didn't reply, he spoke again. "Right?" the man said with gritted teeth. "Right," I said meekly, nodding my head. "Good. Now, play with your toy," the red bulbous man said before backing away, grabbing my mother by the waist, hoisting her over his shoulder, and walking away.
"Oh, and Merry Christmas!"
He winked at me before knocking the door shut with his boot. With that, and the flash of a camera, I knew this was unmistakably the man who'd taken my mother. I ran to snatch my daughter from the ancient man and abscond as quickly as I could. My daughter threw a massive tantrum, but there was no way I was letting her anywhere near that murderous mole Santa. In her fit, I heard her say, "All I want for Christmas is a different daddy!" How she will regret that one day. I phoned the police immediately, and when they arrived at my townhome, I showed them the picture I had taken. Ever since that day, there has been a manhunt for the Santa that broke into my home and killed my mother. He is your average Santa impersonator, except he has one dead eye and a penchant for murder. I felt safe until I found a toy train on my doorstep, like the one I'd had so many years ago. I pray this is just a joke, but I wanted my story out there, just in case. Stay safe this holiday season, and pray your children never see Santa in your home. It's best to leave that kind of thing to the storybooks.